Om Amriteshwariye Namaha. Om Amriteshwariye Namaha. Om Amriteshwariye Namaha. Om Partaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratidam Puranamunina Madhye Mahabharadam Advaitamrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravinda Yatapatra Netra Yenatvaya Bharata Daila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetre Kapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogda Gopalanandana Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dogdam Gitam Ritam Mahata Vasudeva Sudam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Om Amriteshwariye Namaha. Thank you so much for joining us again. And in the last class, Krishna condensed the whole Gita teaching in verses 65 and 66. Verse 65 talked about the first stage of sadhana, which is karma yoga. Whether it is dharma yoga or karma yoga, all indicate the same thing, the first stage of sadhana. Then the second stage is jnana yoga, otherwise called Brahma Jignasa. The essence of the Upanishads is Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. So the conclusion of the Gita must be that, and it was, as we saw in verse 66 in the last class, which is the essence of the Gita. At the same time, Krishna says, take refuge in me, which doesn't sound like Vedanta. But Jnana Yoga and taking refuge in God are connected, because the highest refuge is only possible through Jnana Yoga. Until then, a person can surrender various things, but not their ego. Wealth and possessions are relatively easy to surrender, but people are so identified to their ego, they don't even know how to surrender it. We may say, I have given up my house, my job, my wife, my children. I have given up my. I have given up my. But we don't know how to give up our ego. As long as the ego remains, our surrender cannot be total. And remember, the word ego is ahankara in Sanskrit. The meaning is the feeling of I. And unfortunately, that I means the body and mind, not the Atman. We cannot retain the feeling that I am this body and mind and surrender everything at the same time. Because the orders of the body and mind will always come first. That means that at best we can surrender everything after all our physical and mental needs are satisfied. And when are they satisfied? Never. The final stage of bhakti is Atma Nivedanam, which means offering one's own ahankara or ego. This is not possible through karma or upasana or bhakti, etc. Because ahankara is born of ignorance. Therefore, only right understanding can enable us to surrender the feeling that we are this body, mind, and intellect. There's a beautiful verse in the Mahabharata. Give up dharma and adharma, and renounce satya and asatya, truth and non-truth. Having given up both satya and asatya, then give up that which helped you in renouncing them, which is the ego. The ahankara is what we use to give up everything else. then we must give up that ahankara itself through jnanam. That is the final sharanagati, or refuge. Before, the concept of refuge was something external, a temple, a person, or a form, which is dualistic, dvaitam. But in this refuge, there is no dualism, because it is the knowledge of who I myself truly are. That is what Krishna meant when he said in verse 66, "Take refuge in me alone. I will absolve you of all your errors." That means moksha, because in the final refuge, our individuality, separate from God or Amma, is gone. Now let us proceed to verse 68. Now together, slowly. Yaidam paramam guhyam madbhakteshvabhidhasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mame vashyatya samshayah. I changed this a little bit. With supreme love to me, one who teaches this supreme secret to my devotees shall doubtless come to me alone. Shankaracharya's commentary is just a little bit here today. With supreme devotion to me means with the conviction I am engaged in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Guru. So for us that would mean, I'm doing this for Amma. And a lot of times we forget to have that feeling, so he's reminding us. And one who teaches this means by teaching both the text itself and its import. And what is the supreme secret? He says, that means it is the means to the highest bliss. And to my devotees, he adds some explanation. The repetition of devotion here means that by merely having devotion to the Lord, one becomes worthy of being taught the Gita and shall doubtlessly come to me alone. That means he will be liberated of this. There is no doubt about it. Now, though Krishna prescribed 4 qualifications for hearing the Gita, now in Shankaracharya's commentary, he says they just need to be a devotee. On the other hand, without bhakti, nobody should hear the Gita. Now here, my devotee doesn't mean that only Krishna devotees can learn the Gita. It means devotion to God in any form. Remember, Amma gives mantra to devotees of any faith: Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Native American and other traditional faiths, even atheists. Then what is the idea behind Shankaracharya's commentary for this verse? If a person has bhakti, then even if other qualifications are wanting, sooner or later they will be filled by the grace of their beloved deity. Because the bhakta, the devotee, will pray, Amma, please give me more discipline, give me more bhakti, more faith, more jnana, the desire to know. Then, due to bhakti, our lacking qualifications will gradually increase in us. Remember when bhakti was emphasized in verse 58? With your mind thus given to me, you shall, by my grace, overcome all obstacles. And which are the most powerful obstacles of all? The internal ones, which are due to a lack of good qualities. But even if you lack certain qualifications, your devotion will make up the rest. Also, I feel personally that since Shankaracharya's commentary came about 4,000 years later than Krishna's time, those of us who are living now in Kali Yuga, everything is getting worse and worse every day, so we need all the help we can get. So I don't mind him lowering the bar. Now the Jnaneshwar commentary. One who installs the divine Gita gem in the shrine of their heart, they become one with me and attain equality with me. Whoever tells my devotees the secret contained in the Gita and brings the devotee and the Gita together in the same way as one brings together a mother with her infant who has no other sustenance than her mother's milk. That person becomes one with me after the fall of their body. Now the Swami Chidbhavananda commentary. The good in us increases when we share with others. Food, for example, is most beneficial to all beings and usually procured for personal benefit only. But on experiment and observation, it was found that one who procures food for common use thrives more than those who cook exclusively for themselves. One who eats in company or one who shares their food with others maintains better health and strength than people who eat all alone. Furthering the lives of others is a sure way to enrich one's life. This principle is as effective on the ethical and spiritual levels as it is on the physical level. By imparting knowledge and wisdom to others, one's intellectual clarity increases. One who teaches others learns more than one who studies by themselves. The more one teaches, the more one learns. By devotedly carrying the spiritual treasures contained in the Bhagavad Gita for the benefit of sharing with others, one gets a better understanding. Feel yourself to be an instrument in propagating spirituality among good and virtuous people, which makes our sadhana firm. Verses 68 to 71 fall into the category of palastuti, or praising the benefits, which you will see in virtually every Indian scripture. First, Krishna talks about the phala, the fruits, for the teacher. They shall doubtlessly come to me alone. The only condition is that they must have supreme love for me. Of course, that love extends to our Guru Amma and the Guru lineage. Under no circumstances should we tarnish the Guru-Shishya tradition, the Guru and disciple relationship. We must be sincere, humble, and patient like Amma is. Even if you share something from the Gita and they don't understand, it doesn't matter. Don't try to make them understand. I'll share an experience of my own. It was 1990, and my brother invited me to see this person called Amma. And it was in California, and the hall was in San Rafael, which is North Bay, if you're familiar. And when we got there, it was like a college or something like that. And as we were getting out of the car in the parking lot, I started asking questions to him, because she's a great being, she's a saint. So I was thinking maybe it's like a concert, or they're going to be special effects, dry ice, who knows? I mean, I was so ignorant. And my brother said, no, she just comes in, she's very humble. And I thought, what is that going to look like? And then it was a Devi Bhava day, so we were all sitting on the floor. And in those days, we had an oil lamp with wicks, and we had camphor and a spoon to wave it, everything. These days, obviously, we can't do that because it takes up too much space. And then suddenly, a conch sound came, and I looked at the other side of the hall, and I could see that there's some disciples, like the Swamis, chanting something, and it was Nakarmana, as you know. And then Amma just stood there quietly, and when the chanting was over, the ceremony was over, she climbed onto the stage and sat down. There was nothing, no special effects or anything, but she was the special effect. And I looked at her and I said, she's so tiny, she's so adorable. And for some time I was enchanted, but I was a very restless person at that time. So after about an hour, I told my brother, I asked him actually, how long is this going to take? And his Devi Bhavi says maybe 4 hours. And I was like, I can't do this. I want to go home. And surprisingly, he said, okay, let's go home. Now the reason why I'm saying this, because if he had argued with me or if he made me stay late, I probably wouldn't have had a good I probably wouldn't have a good impression. If I had fought with him or got angry, just imagine what would have happened. It would have been something very disastrous. Maybe I never would have gone to Amma again. So that shows that no understanding is harmless, but wrong understanding means that terrible consequences. That is why in ancient times it was prohibited to write teachings on paper, because it is easy to misunderstand the meaning of a teaching, then write something incorrect or misleading, even with good intentions. Therefore, to preserve this timeless Guru tradition, the Gita must be taught with utter devotion to God and Guru. Remember, chapter 3, verse 26. One should not unsettle the minds of the ignorant who are attached to action. The wise one should cause them to enjoy all actions, while himself performing actions in a disciplined manner. So that's exactly what Amma does. She doesn't just tell us to work, she says she's doing it. In fact, she's the first person to start. That's why her words and actions are perfectly the same. What happens to one who follows this instruction? Krishna says, they come to me. And what does that mean? As Shankaracharya said, they will get mukti, no doubt about it. Now let us move on to verse 69. Nacha tasman manusheshu kaschin me priyakritamaha bhavita nacha me tasmad anya priyataro bhuvi. I changed the translation quite a bit, so you might want to listen closely. Among all people, nobody does more pleasing service to me, nor shall there be any person on earth more dear to me than this one. I just took one line or two from Shankaracharya's commentary. Among all people means the present generation. And nobody does more pleasing service to me means the one who hands down this scripture. Now the Jnaneshwara commentary. I am extremely fond of such a narrator of the Gita, even though they are adorned with a body and remain separate from me. They are more dear to me than a person of knowledge, a person engrossed in ritual works, or an ascetic. O son of Bandhu, there is nobody on this earth who is more dear to me than one who narrates the Gita in a large group of my devotees. Fixing their mind upon me through longing for me and giving lessons of the Gita, one becomes an ornament in the assembly of saints. I feel as if the spring has come in the form of this narrator, of the Gita in the garden in the form of devotees. Just as the spring season, the trees in the garden get new foliage, the hairs on the listeners stand on end. Like the trees that move in the soft breeze, the listeners sway to and fro with great joy. Just as the flowers are covered with dew in the garden, their lotus-like eyes become moist with joyous tears. Just as the cuckoos sing in a sweet voice in the garden, so the listeners sing my name loudly in a faltering tone. So my devotee, in communion with me, scatters in profusion the gems in the form of the Gita verses, in the assembly of pious seekers. If I look around, I have not met such a worthy devotee in the past, nor am I likely to meet one in the future. In this way, they serve a feast of Gita teachings to the seekers. To such a devotee, I give a place in my heart. Now the Swami Chidbhavananda commentary. Among all God's manifestations and revelations, the Bhagavad Gita occupies a unique position. It explains the working of the universe and the divinity inherent in it. It expounds the laws governing human life. The substratum, which is the source of the universe, and the beings in it, is lucidly presented in the Gita. Knowledge pertaining to the divine and the mundane is all contained in it. To put it in another way, the ways and means of attaining God, and also of making early life prosperous and fruitful, are all convincingly conveyed through it. The student of the Gita will very soon become a yogi. In this verse also, Krishna glorifies the one who shares the Gita teaching properly. The reason is that they preserve the tradition as a cultural heritage, which is the greatest service one can do. Those who listen properly will find at least some spiritual growth, getting closer and closer to moksha. Thus, Krishna basically says, I have a soft spot for him. So many people do many varieties of service, but this service is most dear to me because they are preserving the tradition. Krishna even says, even in the future, there won't be a person more dear to me than him. In the 4th chapter, verses 2 and 3, Krishna said, thus, having received it one from another, the royal sages knew it. With the long lapse of time, this yoga has been lost to the world. The same age-old yoga, which is indeed the supreme secret, I have declared to you today because you are my devotee and friend. So, Amma came as Krishna to re-establish the teaching 5,200 years ago, and our Amma is re-establishing it again right now. Yes, Krishna and Amma came for the very same reason, to revive true spirituality. This reminds me of a passage from the secret book of John in the Gnostic teachings. Christ said, follow me quickly, because I came down for you. You are loved ones. You will bring life to many people. And Amma's sacred invitation comes in the very first Omkara Divya Purli. Omkara Divya Purli Varu Omana Makkale Vegam Omanayai Valarnamayangal Niki Omkara Vastuvai Tiryo. Come quickly, my darling children, you who are the divine essence of Om. Removing all sorrows, grow as enduring ones, and become one with the sacred syllable Om. I had an experience about this verse that I just sang. I was having my midlife crisis when I was 21 years old. And I didn't know what to do with my life, and lots of confusion. And it was after my second time I met Amma. I just decided to drive up into the mountains in California. And fortunately, I had Amma's biography with me. I didn't know how to meditate, but I thought I have to meditate because I have to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And as I was reading her biography, one of the chapters had an Amma quote at the beginning, and that was the verses that I just sang. Come quickly, my darling children. And when I read that, I said, my gosh, I have to go quickly, I have to go quickly. And I just packed up all my things, got in the car, and then I started driving back to the Bay Area, California. And along the way, I called my brother from a payphone, because there were no cell phones. And I said, you know that Amma person, is she still around? And my brother said, yeah, she's there. He's the one that, introduced me. And I said, where is she? And he says, she's in Palo Alto. That's where we lived. So obviously Amma was orchestrating everything. And I'm so grateful. Now let us go on to verse 70. Now together, let's chant slowly. Adhyeshate chaya imam dharmyam samvadamavayaho jnana yajnena tenaham ishtasham iti me matihi. I didn't change this one very much. And one who will study this sacred dialogue of ours, by them shall I be worshipped through the wisdom sacrifice. Such is my conviction. Now let us hear Shankaracharya's commentary. This sacred means which does not deviate from dharma, so it has to be dharmic. And I shall be worshipped through the wisdom sacrifice. Here, Shankaracharya wants to explain something. Of the 4 kinds of yajnas, which are vidhi, japa, uparshu, and manasa puja, which are, in English, prescribed rituals, chanting a mantra, praying in a whisper, and puja or prayer in visualization. But he says, jnana yajna comes under the head of manasa and therefore is the highest. Thus, the study of the Gita Shastra is extolled as jnana yajna. Now, Jnaneshwar's commentary. One who repeatedly recites this conversation between you and me, which illuminates the truth in its entirety, kindles the sacrificial fire of knowledge without analyzing the words or shlokas. And by giving the offering in the form of knowledge pleases me, the Supreme Self. Whatever capacity the wise acquire through study and experience of the Gita is also attained by the devotees by singing and narrating the Gita. Thus, one who recites the Gita secures the same fruit as is attained by one who knows its meaning. Because Mother Gita does not make any distinction between a knowing child and a baby. Now, I have to say something here. Both Jnaneshwar and Swami Chidbhavananda deviate from the exact meaning of verses 68 to 71. Krishna makes a distinction between the benefits of teaching, studying, and listening. Though Krishna clearly defined the results of each, some commentators take artistic freedom, probably to encourage their readings to give more importance to Gita, even as a novice. Now, Swami Chidbhavananda's commentary. Devotedly listening to the Bhagavad Gita is one way of learning it. A personal, pious study of it is another way of making it one's own. The best way to teach Vedanta is to live Vedanta. Practice is always superior to instruction. A refined living example is superior to a refined explanation of the laws of life. Teachers are many, but those who practice the teaching are very few. We know that. Those who study the Gita and try to live up to its teachings are performing jnana yajna, which is very much pleasing to God and to Amma too. You know, I think one of Amma's favorite times in the year is when the Amrita Shri program starts. It becomes an endless festival of selfless service. And if you don't know what Amrita Shri is, look it up on Amma's website. It's a beautiful program. The essence of this verse is that whoever is studying the Gita is worshipping Krishna through jnana yajna, the puja of cultivating knowledge. We need no lamps, no mudras, no flowers, no rice pudding, payasam. So how can we call it worship? Through jnana yajna, according to Krishna. Earlier, we mentioned that we can chant the Gita or learn the meaning of the Gita. Chanting gives us punya, which is good karma, but studying the meaning is the real jnana yajna, resulting in moksha ultimately. Now, having talked about studying, Krishna will talk about listening to the Gita. If one cannot read the Gita as it is, the next best thing is listening. Shraddhavan anasuyascha shrunuyad apiyo naraha sopi mukta shubhallokan prapnuyat punya karmanam. I didn't change anything in this translation. And even the one who hears this full of faith and free from malice, they too, liberated from sin, shall reach the happy worlds of the righteous. Shankaracharya's commentary. They too means that much more will be the case with one who understands the teaching. So you'll get something, but it's not as good as with the person who understands the teaching. And reach the happy worlds of the righteous means those who have performed the daily fire ceremonies and other rituals. So is that moksha? No, it doesn't go that far. Now, Jnaneshwar's commentary. As soon as a person full of faith in the Gita hears someone chanting the Gita with piety and without carping, their sins flee from them. With the rise of the sun on the horizon, the darkness in the sky is dispelled. In the same way, when Gita chanting enters a person's ear, all their sins accumulated since the beginning of time get destroyed. Now, hold on. We know this must be an overstatement, obviously. But, such we could call it perhaps aggressive marketing, but that can be forgiven for a noble cause. Especially in Kali Yuga, when dreadful things are being aggressively marketed to people with poor judgment. So Jnaneshwar's tactic could possibly be regarded as an emergency policy, like the COVID vaccines used under emergency use authorization. They called it an EUA. So it's kind of like that. Back to the commentary. In this way, their family tree also becomes purified and holy, bearing beautiful fruits. One acquires the merit of as many house sacrifices as the letters in the Gita, which enter the heart through the ears. Now, if I counted correctly, the syllables or letters in the Gita are 23,126. So it means that it will give the same merit as 23,126 homas. I didn't actually count them. There's a way to do it. So anyhow, it is another overstatement. So one who hears the Gita gets rid of their sins, increases their merit, and ultimately attains the kingdom of God. In their journey towards me, they make their first halt in heaven. After enjoying the celestial pleasures to their heart's content, they ultimately join me. I would say, after becoming bored of pleasure, because that's what Amma says. People go to heaven and they enjoy all these pleasures, but then they're stuck there for millions of years and they get bored. Okay, one line left in the commentary. In this way, I give the reciter and also the listener of the Gita the fruit in the form of bliss. Now a few more thoughts on this verse. Here also, Shravanam can be just listening or it can mean studying. Just listening casually will not render a deep understanding and certainly not mukti. Then what is the benefit? Good karma, or they call it punya. When a person is studying the Gita, they listen with focus, writing notes rereading their notes, remembering what was in the last class, etc. If they find something inconsistent, they contemplate on the matter. Studying ends in knowledge, hearing ends in good karma. In this verse, Krishna is talking about casual listening, so they get more good karma, which is why Krishna says they will attain punya lokam, the world of good karma. Krishna is talking about people who have done noble karmas, like pujas or giving food or other social service. So whatever punya loka such noble people go to, one who listens to the Gita receives the same treatment. Thus, for listening to the Gita, the minimum benefit is heaven, even if you don't understand anything. But what if we understand the teaching? The teaching itself is Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am Brahma. The teaching itself is Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am Brahman. Therefore, what is the benefit? Moksha. Therefore, the minimum is heaven, the maximum is moksha. Just how great is the Bhagavad Gita? With this, Krishna has talked about the rules for the study, and he has also talked about the benefits for the teacher, the student, the reader, and the listener, everyone. Now, Krishna wants to know which category Arjuna belongs in. Are you simply listening, or are you a student? Till now, Arjuna asked questions and Krishna answered. Now the table is turned. Krishna is going to ask Arjuna and see if he is just listening or a bona fide student. What is the sign of a true student? The indication is understanding, and the sign of understanding is freedom from confusion. In chapter 2, verse 72, Krishna said, O Partha, attaining Brahma in this way is called Brahma Sthiti, the state of Brahman. After attaining this state, one is no longer deluded. In other words, clear knowledge means there's no confusion in life. And that was exactly Arjuna's problem, confusion, as he confessed in the second chapter, verse 7. My nature smitten with the taint of weakness, confused in the mind about dharma, I pray to you, tell me decisively what is good for me. I am your disciple, teach me, for I have taken refuge in you. Since Arjuna said this at the beginning of the Gita, now Krishna is going to ask two questions. Did you listen to my teaching and understand it? And has your confusion gone? Now, let's move to verse 72 and find out what the answer is going to be. Kachit te tachrutam partha tvaya ekagrena chetasa kachit ajnana sammohaha pranashtaste dhananjaya. I didn't change the translation, so I'll just read it out. Have you listened to me, O Partha, with an attentive mind? Has the delusion of your ignorance been destroyed, O Dhananjaya? Now Shankaracharya's commentary. To ascertain whether his pupil has understood the Gita teaching or not, the Lord questions Arjuna, with the object being this: if I find that he has not grasped it, I shall make him understand it through some other means. By this, it is made known that the duty of the teacher or acharya is to resort to diverse attempts to make the pupil understand the teaching and enable the pupil to attain their object. The teacher should not become indifferent towards the pupil who, owing to dullness of intellect, is unable to grasp what has already been taught. This is exactly what Amma does. She repeats the same things over and over and over, and we might get bored of it. She doesn't, because she knows that we haven't understood properly. So continuing the commentary. Have you heard and understood what I told you with an attentive mind? Or have you been inattentive? Has your delusion been destroyed? The confusion in your mind the absence of discernment. The destruction of your delusion is the motive of all this effort on your part to hear the teaching and on my part as its teacher. Now, Jnaneshwar's commentary. Tell me, O Arjuna, have you imbibed all the doctrines of the Gita? Whatever knowledge I poured into your ears, has it sunk in your mind? Or has some got scattered along the way or being ignored by you through disrespect? If whatever I have told you has entered your heart, then give a straight and ready answer to my question. Have you now got rid of the infatuation that arose in your mind due to ignorance? Do you still think that you will undertake some action? Or will you abstain from it at your own will? Krishna asked this question in order to prevent Arjuna from being dissolved in the bliss of Brahman and brought him back to the sense of separation. The Lord thought that if Arjuna became attuned to Brahman, he would not fulfill the object he has to complete, and so he did not allow him to transgress the boundary of his separate personality. But by asking him this question, the Lord restored Arjuna's consciousness of the body and made him confirm whether he had attained perfection or not. Now, Swami Chidbhavananda's commentary. Mental concentration is the criterion for completely understanding any message. A distracted or inattentive mind may not grasp all the implications of an exalted statement. A brief and pointed approach is enough to drive home the point to a keen and attentive listener. Here, the one who gave the message is concerned with Arjuna's comprehension. But when an ardent disciple is taught by a worthy master, true enlightenment is bound to ensue. A few more ideas on this. Listening requires the participation of the student. Passive listening is one type, active listening is another. Therefore, Krishna asks, did you listen with a one-pointed mind, with full concentration? Because only then knowledge is possible. Without concentration, some stray ideas will be understood, but how do you tie all these ideas together and make a systematic sadhana? All these things must fall in place, which we can call samanvaya, integration of all the concepts, which is only possible through sincere listening. And only when we have integrated everything can we call it knowledge. Otherwise, our understanding will remain partial, which always leads to confusion, uncertainty, and tension. Therefore, Krishna wants Arjuna to tell him whether he has assimilated the knowledge or not. And what is the sign of assimilation? Krishna asks the second question, has your delusion completely gone? If the teacher gives temporary consolation, the student will require the teacher's help over and over. That is not true help. The student must be able to stand on their own 2 feet, hence the question. From this, Krishna gives another clue. All conflicts in life are born out of ignorance, and destruction of ignorance is through knowledge. So the question indirectly is, have you gained knowledge? Are you convinced of Aham Brahmasmi? Are you now, I am Brahma? Some final words from Jnaneshwar on this verse. Then, just as the moon rising from the Milky Sea illuminates the sky without separating from the sea, Arjuna had reached the frontier in which, on one hand, he was getting forgetful of his Brahmic state, but on the other side, he was seeing Brahman all around. On one side, the world was fast vanishing, while on the other side, his Brahmic state was abating. Brahmic state just means the state of being immersed in Brahman. Then he forgot his Brahmic state and came back to body consciousness in the form of I am Arjuna. Then with trembling hands, he soothed the goosebumps on his body and wiped the sweat dry. Then he supported his body, which was swaying due to his heightened breathing. After steadying the movement of his body, he held back the joyful tears trickling down his eyes. Then he suppressed the emotions crowding in his heart, which produced a choking sensation in his throat. And further recovering his faltering speech, he steadied his breath. This is definitely a description from one who has had the same experience. I'm sure Amma would say the same thing. You cannot explain an experience like that without having experienced it yourself. Now let us hear Arjuna's response in the next and final class. Now let us have a brief meditation. First, check your posture. Close your eyes and take a few long, deep breaths. With each long, deep breath, feel your body and mind relax further and further. Feel Amma's subtle Feel Amma's subtle presence all around you and within you. Feel her embrace, the warmth of her body, and the love in her heart. Now focus your awareness on your breathing. Now focus your awareness on your breathing breathing process. Now turn your awareness to your breathing process. Now shift your awareness to your body. Now turn your awareness to your breathing process. As the Now turn your awareness to your breathing process. Just witness the flow of the inhalation and exhalation. It is as though you are sitting on the bank of a peaceful stream, watching the water flow in front of you. when you focus on your breath, the mind becomes more and more subtle. And with that subtlety, we can visualize more. We can visualize Amma's fort. We can visualize Amma's form before us. Pray to Amma for her help and guidance, so that we may be able to put all of these teachings into practice. Let us now pray to Amma for her guidance and blessings. Oh my beloved Amma, you know how many vasanas and problems that we have. In order to put these teachings into practice, we will need your grace every second of the day. Please hold my hand and guide me. Don't let me fall down. Be my guide each and every second of the day. That is my only wish. Now let us conclude with the final prayers. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Lokaha Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Om Shanti 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 Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. One more long deep breath. And as you exhale, you can slowly open your eyes. I look forward to seeing all of you in the next class. Om Amriteshwari Namaha.